So today, I have the pleasure of introducing you to Joice. We've spent quite a few occasions doing things together. Joice was the first one to invite me to my first speaking engagement in the real estate community. And she contacted me to come up and talk, and coincidentally, she asked me to come up to Maui and talk at a event that she was hosting in Lahaina at Tommy Bahamas. Now, this was pre-fire, I think maybe like a month or two.
Yeah, July.
Yeah, in July.
Yeah.
So, I mean, right before. Prior to that, I haven't been back to Maui in almost 10 years. So it is really thanks to Joice that I've been able to kind of get back, reconnect, and be a part of Maui again, because I have family here. And I've since reconnected with them. I've furthered relationships that I've kind of had that were distant, and I've had the opportunity to be here. And I love Maui. I love Maui. I've made it a point to come back often, and now this is part of my triangle of Oahu, Maui, Big Island. I really do my best to serve the local community on all islands, because we all need the help. We all need the education and the information, and we all at times need a helping hand. So I am pleased to have Joice here, because we've been through a lot together since July. Yeah. And she's been through a lot. Her family's been through a lot. I assume that, I expect we may have a few emotional moments here because of all the things that we have been through have been pretty challenging and difficult.
Yeah.
But the one thing I will say is your resiliency through all this is really what I'd like to highlight, because was anybody doing meetups here before the Lahaina meetup that we did?
There has been. I haven't really been active in the real estate realm prior to when I did meet you. I gotta say, last year was probably the year that I really expanded my horizon. So prior to that, I believe Zasha was the one that was big on doing it on Maui.
Okay.
And through that, I met Tereva and a couple other real estate investors. So that was just my first one that I personally did, because that was a goal of mine, being in WNN Properties. You know, I wanted to start getting to know more real estate investors. That was exciting. And me having to reach out and getting outside of the comfort zone, not just here on Maui, but Oahu, and people I've never met before, but I've only seen their journeys through social media. Hence you. Yeah. You know, I reached out. You and Kalaya were the first two that was able to get over here. And that was exciting, because even if I don't personally know you, I feel like I've already known you through social media and through the journeys that we've gone through. Since then, I feel like, you know, you've opened up your home to us, and vice versa. You've been through with me on my journey, through my first meetup, through the fire, and after the fire, and every time that I've gone to Oahu, we've always made it a point to meet. So prior to the fire, or prior to that first one, there has been meetups on Maui, but I've never really been as active in it as I am now.
How much of your real estate journey happened prior to our first meeting? Like, where were you? Where was your beginning, and where did that happen, and where are you now? Like, let's kind of go through the timeline of that.
Yeah, sure. It was a slow process in the beginning, because I thought I could do it all on my own. You know, me and Daryl have saved up money and done it all the conventional way. So the first house that we ever bought was right next to my mother-in-law's, and we watched it. It went up to foreclosure. It went up in foreclosure. And so we got to take a look at the house. We experienced the whole thing, going to the courthouse, bidding up by $20 that they were asking for, which was super, super exciting. At that time in 2016, it was $475, $800 or so is what was the bank asking for. I went up by $20 to $476 and I got it. There was nobody else there. The bank was satisfied because the loan, that's all they wanted back.
Yeah.
And 3 months later, we had to go back for a confirmation hearing. From what I'm hearing now, the process is a lot more difficult because now there's so many more investors. If you go to that second confirmation hearing, you can get outbid again by multiple investors. When we were there was nobody else. It was just us. So that was pretty exciting. We got to keep it at that 476. We waited a couple more months until we actually got the keys, but we got it 6 months later, right next door to my mother-in-law. So that was the most exciting thing, is we got to keep our family close to each other. That was the first one. And then, like I said, I never joined any mentorships. I kind of here and there, would listen to podcasts, Bigger Pockets. I'd read up on it, but it was we did our W-2 job. We saved up our down payment. And with the price here on Maui, that down payment is huge. $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, and the only way I was able to do it really was to house hack on the first one. And then same with the second one, 4 years later, had a bunch of cash. We were looking, and this time around was almost double the price of the first one that we did. So that's how fast the Maui market grew.
Appreciation.
So $749 was the asking price on that house. It was 869 square feet living space. It's not that big.
Yeah.
But that's what the Maui prices get you. It's $749. We got it down to $740. That one was another interesting one, was because we couldn't get conventional financing. The house was in a state that wasn't financeable, is what they said.
Yeah.
A couple of termite rotted piece of wood here and there. So we ended up actually, before we got the house and the keys, in order to get it financed, we made an agreement with the sellers that we'd fix it. We'd fix this, whatever areas they had asked us to repair, which wasn't much. It's a piece of wood, like a 2x4 here.
You were going to remedy the problems so that you could get the financing so they could sell it to you.
Correct.
Right. But that's a risk, though, because you're making all the repairs and you don't even own the house yet.
Yep. Oh, yeah. And $740,000 is going to be, I needed that finance. There was no way I was going to be able to cash that anyway if it wasn't financeable. So I had to make it work. There was something else that happened in that process too. We kept extending the closing date, and the sellers they knew the market was going up. And they said at some point, if you don't put any more earnest money deposit, $15,000 is what they asked for. They wanted $15,000 more of an earnest money deposit in order to secure the last extension, or they would go back to market and get a higher price, $850,000. And I said, there's no way, I'm letting this go. Take my money, take the $15,000. And that's another risk that I was willing to take, right? Because for me, at the end of the day, it's securing these properties on Maui for not just for us, but for our kids. We're priced out of paradise, like they all say, and I wasn't gonna let my kids be those where they wouldn't be able to afford a home here in Maui. So that was the second one. And then I guess 2 years later, I came across WNN Properties. I attended one of their Zoom meetings about what your goals were gonna be for 2023 at that time. So it was in December of 2022. And I remember Gil, and I always shout out to him, right? We went into this group together with 4 or 5 people, and they said, hey, what are you gonna do in the next quarter to make this great? And I remember saying in that group that I wanted to quit my job. I wanna quit my W-2, I wanna focus on real estate. Of course, it didn't happen in 2023, but I think at that moment is when it really skyrocketed for me, because I joined the mentorship with Brandon Rabe in March that next year. And from then on, I stayed true to what their program was saying, trust the process. Kansas City was the next market that I explored. I have no idea what's out there. I've never even heard of Kansas City or Missouri ever. I don't even know where they are on the map.
Geography in Hawaii doesn't exist outside of our little island.
But I think at that point, the reason why I did that was because funds were getting low. And if I was going to go conventional, I could only afford so much of a down payment on the next property. I couldn't do another $50,000 more. So that's why I went to Kansas City, and I don't regret it at all, because today I'm on the fourth one. I just offered on a fifth and a sixth one, crossing fingers that that pulls through. But it's been quite a journey. In 2023, with everything that has happened, I gotta say that last year has to have been the biggest growth for me ever, for everything that I've been through. And real estate has really been the one thing that has kept me afloat, because of what has happened, in August of last year is devastating for everybody. And it's not just me or my family, but the entire town. And it gives me chicken skin, because my real estate community were really the first people that reached out as soon as we got service after the fire. My phone was blowing off, from you guys, from just everybody, Zasha, Tereva, Alex Camacho, like Janelle and Dawn over in Kihei. So the entire real estate community reached out to me the day after, and it really was heartwarming for me, because then I know that the people, even if it's just social media, it already feels like a family. And these are people who genuinely care about your journey and what you're going through as well. So, yeah.
For maybe the unsuspecting audience, the ones that just crawled out of a rock, they don't know what happened. Give us a timeline about what happened in Lahaina, really quick, and then we can kind of talk about how we were able to collaborate on some of the things, and we can talk about what happened next, because your resiliency is amazing, and I think you don't realize what we're capable of until you put into the position, right? And the adversity that you faced, that a lot of people have faced here, is really the pressure that was needed as a catalyst for growth.
Agreed.
So a lot of us don't know that there are some good things coming out of this, right? It's not all a tragic story.
Correct. I agree with you 100% on that one. And I want to back up just a little bit too, because the time that we did meet, do you remember I walked you through my third property? This was like a project house.
Oh, that's the crazy thing, is I've got video from that. Like I've edited a few horribly produced videos that hopefully this guy can help. We'll show you the picture after of this guy, help me clean up. But I consider myself fortunate to have been here at these moments to capture some of this and retell the story, because I feel it needs to be told. And I feel that there's a lot of people that can also extract hope out of it, just the way that I got some out of watching you go through this. Like, so start there and take us through it.
Again, I think people are put in our lives at a certain point in our lives for that reason, right? Yeah. And in June, when I did close on that house and I reached out, I think everything just kind of lined up. That's exactly where things were meant to be. So we closed on the house in June, and this house was in Hawaii.
Beautiful. It was gorgeous.
Again, in Hawaii, a $500,000 house is beautiful.
Yeah.
It's a plantation house, and this was another exciting milestone for me, because this is where I got to learn about private money, other ways of funding deals. Creative. Outside of that, correct.
Yep.
And it was through the meetups that I was able to find my private money lender, and I couldn't have done that project without him. He funded the whole project and the rehab. So the closing went a whole lot faster. There weren't anything that they needed. And my mortgage papers were 20 pages long compared to the
because you're missing the loan docs.
Correct. You're signing your life away.
I'll help you with your loan docs, don't worry.
But you have to start there, right? In order to get outside and comfortable doing other things, you have to start and know what the conventional process is.
Yep.
But yeah, that was a unicorn deal, I say, because everything was funded. I had to come in with very little money on that one, but it needed a lot of rehab. old plantation house built in like 1910 for $500,000. It was a lot, and this was going to be my first huge rehab that I was going to undertake. I didn't know what I was getting into. And going back, it definitely was a roller coaster, because I went through two contractors during that time. And there were nights that I could not sleep. The stress, and like, it was just really, really heavy. And when they tell you, get a mentor so you can have them help you through that process, yeah, do that. Because again, I was still stubborn, and I wanted to do it all on my own. I was trying to, negotiate with the contractors that were friends of mine. And that's another thing too, is if you are hiring contractors, there's a business side, and then there's a personal side too. And you really have to keep that line separated, because you could, and this is what happened to us, is our personal relationship with this friend ended up being no more.
Yep.
So lesson learned on that one. But you got to walk that property, which was nice. Again, it's the timing was great, because you and Kalaya got to see what that property looked like before. Ideally, I would have liked for you guys to see the finished product, but again,
I did. That house is completely finished. Bad joke.
Yes. But I was in the middle of that project, and going up to August 8th, we were doing our rehabs on it. I had the contractors that day, actually that morning before I went to work. I can still replay it in my head. The winds were just so heavy that morning. I went into work really, really early because the power went out. The night before, I remember, oh my goodness, it felt like we were on an airplane with so much turbulence. You could feel the wind hitting the side of the house. Nothing that we haven't been through in the past. We've been through fire on the mountainside. We've had high winds before.
I feel like in Hawaii we have our fair share of like hurricane preparedness.
And so we didn't think anything of it. I'm like, oh, here's another power outage. This is really scary though, but it's just another one of those days. So I woke up early that day. Power was out. Work generator was on. Just everything at work went down. I went in early that day. I remember trying to drive out of the driveway, and there was a bougainvillea bush that just obstructed the entire driveway.
Just blown over?
Yeah, just blown over. So it took a little bit, but he and the neighbor had to take that out. But the winds were still really heavy, leaves, just everything flying everywhere. And I remember getting a text message that morning from my contractor, because the roof from the house, this is the galvanized roof, right? It flew to the neighbor's house. And so he was on his way in anyway that day. So he went, got it retrieved. The neighbor was pretty upset because they said it hit their house. Yeah. So one flew off, and then he sent me a video, and I couldn't believe it, but the rest of the galvanized roofing was already peeling off. And I didn't know what else to do. Like, they were trying to secure it as much as they could. That same morning, I got a brand new electrical panel being installed. Why? I don't know. But it was just on the schedule of things to do. So that was that morning. And then I was at work the entire day. I lost service at around 1 o'clock, I think, and then I couldn't get a hold of Daryl or the kids. And after that, really, everything just kind of went down. We couldn't get a hold of anybody. Nobody knew what was happening out there in town. And people weren't able to come into work. There was just so much activity, people trying to get out, get in, and not knowing what was happening.
You're still unaware of any danger from fire?
Yeah, absolutely nothing. I mean, up to 1 o'clock, I was seeing things on social media about that fire getting contained, and then that was it. But after 1 o'clock, just everything stopped. There was just nothing. You just had no idea what the heck was going on. We were so disconnected from everything. I was in my office, in the basement, with a lamp because there was no power, no, just nothing at all. And I remember just wanting to get home that day. And Everybody did, of course. So after 4 o'clock, there was one of our, and here, this is what really stands out to me also, is one of the engineers. He had left at 4 o'clock, and he was trying to, get a hold of his wife. Bless her soul, she didn't make it out of the fire, but I still remember that day when he was clocking out, fumbling with his phone, trying to leave because he had to meet his wife, not knowing where she was. So that kind of stood out to me, just how desperate people were trying to get home. And then I think it was 5 o'clock that day. I was like, you know what? I got to get home. I have to go. And so I was going to catch a ride with one of my engineers because he lived in Waiikuli also, and I was going to get dropped off to my dad's house. If I had left with him, I don't think I would have been reconnected with my family at all that day, because he pulls up just 5 minutes after with the kids in the back of the truck, and that's when we had gone back. That's when we had got back together. It's the last time I ever spoke to, prior to that, at noon was the last time I spoke to him. But yeah, if I had left with that engineer, I wouldn't have been connected with my family until the next day. So I'm pretty fortunate that his timing was good. And we didn't know what to do at that point. We saw big black smoke coming from town. We still didn't know what was going on. And we were driving around trying to find food because it was getting late already. Everything was closed though because of the electricity, right?
Yeah.
So we're driving around town just trying to find places to buy food. And finally we're like, you know what? We gotta go to Mom's house in Waiikuli, which is a little bit closer. We ended up having to park right there by the beach. We watched everything for a little bit, still not knowing what was going on. But you could hear explosions. You could hear explosions from where we were at. And this is miles away from town. So you could hear explosions. And one by one, you'd see people walking down the sidewalk carrying their things. And I recognized 2 or 3 of them too. They were, either I worked with them or one of them was my classmate. And just crying because they just got out with their life. Yeah, and they were telling us first-hand accounts of, being in the car, not being able to get out. One of them had to break one of the fencings just so that they could get out from the cars that were stuck on Front Street. So seeing that, it was horrifying. It's like seeing seeing it from a movie.
Yeah.
And so that was heart-wrenching, but we needed to see and make sure that my family was okay. And we ended up making that walk to my parents' house. Interestingly enough, though, when we were walking, again, we've been through this in the past, and while we were walking through Waiikuli, the lines were backed up, the cars were backed up, and you could see in the garages, people were still just chilling, sitting in the garages, drinking up, just barbecue and making the best out of the situation, not knowing what was to come. So we made it to my parents' house. We probably stayed there for about an hour and a half, having dinner in the dark. And we walked out to the cul-de-sac, and we just watched. Just the entire sky was just red, and you could just see all the smoke, and you could feel the heat. You could feel the heat. It was intense. And at that point, we're like, I think we gotta go. We have to leave. That time we left our truck already behind at the beach, right? Mm-hmm. So my brother, we took his car. Everybody got into the cars, and we all went our separate ways. And that was a scary part. We were trying to keep everybody together because there's no cell phones. There'd be no way we'd get connected. We all got into our cars, and the idea was we go to the Civic Center, which was the shelter, the assigned shelter. We would all meet there and wait it out. Well, 2 or 3 of the cars made it to Civic Center. The other 3, I don't know where they had gone. So there was a lot of this like, God, are they okay? Yeah. I hope they're fine. But I in my mind, I knew that we all got out of that area before the fire came through. My brother had his Grom. He had his Grom, so he was kind of going back and forth just to see. But I remember him when he came
It's a
back.
little bike.
Yeah, but that was so crucial at that time because there's no way you'd be able to get anywhere with a car.
On a car, yeah.
So that's one of the things that he did bring. And I remember when he came back and he said, "Joyce, your house is gone." That was a second house that I had bought over there. He said, "Your house is gone. It's completely engulfed in fire." And I didn't know what to think of that at that point, right? It was devastating. And then he also said that I think the house is gonna go, my parents' house, because that was close. As he was coming out of that street, he said that house in that corner was already in fire and it was making its way down.
Yeah.
So he was in very close proximity to this fire. He sacrificed himself to go and see what was going on. He was trying to water the plants to, see what he could do to try and save it.
Prevent it, yeah.
Yeah. And there wasn't anything else that we could do. But reliving that night, it was a nightmare, it was a full night of sleep and move, we got to a hotel, slept there for a little bit. 3 a.m. we had to leave and evacuate again because the fire still was continuing. And we ended up over in Kapalua parking lot. And I remember just sitting there waiting to see what our next step would be. You either take Kakalua and make it out to Wailuku to safety, or you stay there and who knows, if this fire kept going, we're done, right? I never ever thought that I would ever be in that position of thinking, is this it? Is this the last moment that we're going to be together as a family? My niece, she was in the car and she was praying. She's like, "Please God, let us go home, let us be safe." And we had to console her. She's only 6 or 7 years old. It was a lot. It really was. And so the next day we went looking for my parents. We went looking for the entire family. Again, no service. We couldn't find them. And I think the next time that we did reconnect with my parents was as we were trying to get back to the properties. Things were kind of dying down already. And I remember us looking all over for them. We finally made it over to the Hyatt Regency, close to the exit towards the Ka'anapali. I remember watching my parents. My dad had made it to the property. He walked to the property to see what was there, but my mom stayed behind by the car. She had Coco, our little dog, there, and she broke down. She couldn't fathom what was happening, and it was heartbreaking for me to see that also when we finally found them. They were safe, thank God. But the one thing my mom did say is, I didn't even take any extra clothes. I didn't take anything else. They had maybe like a luggage. They only expected it to, to go back. Yeah, they didn't expect it, unraveling the way it did, but it's unfortunate. And the months after has been hard, settling into a new norm, them moving back and forth, going from hotel to hotel and trying to figure out the whole thing with insurance. It's been a process, but the highlight to all of that is it did keep us strong, and the one thing that kept me going in the middle of all of this chaos was I'm going to keep my real estate journey going. That's the only thing that's going to keep me sane. Is I continued to just put in offers in Kansas City, and I think it was in October we closed on another one, and then in November we closed on another one. So that has just kept me afloat and kept me hopeful that, outside of what's happening here on Maui, life goes on, and you just have to keep being persistent, achieving your goals, and keeping the bigger picture in mind. We will get through it. And the main thing is that we're all healthy, we're alive, and just continue to be resilient and just keep moving on.
How much of real estate has been a beacon for you? Like, if it wasn't for your investing journey and getting back on the horse, so to speak, would there have been anything else that would give you that type of, not distraction, but a refocus, so to speak?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I don't think so, honestly. I think that has been the one thing that has really kept me going. And it's not the real estate itself, but I think it's also the things that come with it, like the people, the process. I get to, I keep in touch with my realtor, my project managers, and then all the networking events that I still go to, I still keep at it because that's I feel like that's my support system.
Yep.
That's what keeps me, that's just what keeps me going. So I'm pretty excited about that and just continuing it. And it's been almost 6-7 months since the fire.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't stopped. I still have my W-2 job. I'm still dealing with insurance. I'm still dealing with everything that life has to throw at me. But keeping focused on real estate really has just kept me sane. I want to say, like, it just keeps me sane, keeps me focused, and keeps going towards the main goal of why I started in the first place.
So I've had the pleasure of meeting one of your PMLs, the one that you spoke about, and it's nice to know that there was a happy ending to that. So what happened with that beautiful property that we got to see? And this is the point where we insert a couple of pictures to show you how beautiful it was later on. Insurance kicked in. Mm-hmm. PML got paid out, right? You were able to salvage that relationship. Mm-hmm. You still own the property?
I do. I own the land outright now, yes.
Nice.
So it was really helpful too in the very beginning because insurance is an interesting thing, right? You never really know what value you have until
you got to try and file a claim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my PML is I guess he's well versed into the mortgages and insurance that when he did require insurance for that property, mm-hmm. he made it so it covered his entire mortgage balance. Yeah. So it covered that. And then also too, before they could even start the claim, they needed to inspect the property. And he's in a position where he had access
Yep.
to the neighborhoods right after the fire, the week of the fire. And so he was able to get my insurance agent
all the stuff they needed
everything that they needed going.
Yep.
So he gave him access. He was able to take the pictures. And again, it's his asset as much as it is mine. Mm-hmm. So it was
you guys
in
are partners,
his interest.
Together, yeah.
It was in his best interest to get this claim going. So he was a great partner in that. He got the coverages correct. He was able to get the agent in there. And then it was a matter of us communicating between the insurance on what they needed. And I want to say less than a month, 2 months after, they got everything processed. Just kept at them, saying if they needed anything else. So he's been pretty good. He's been really, really good to work with. And until this day, we still have that relationship. Yeah. He said, if the day comes and you need another lender to build the house, reach out to me and I'm there for you. So that's definitely one relationship that I want to keep long term. He's the one that we met at a real estate meetup, and he's also a great friend. And I still remember that day. Like I'm going to go into the PML side too for aspiring investors, because it's so important to have that relationship with them. It's not just about the money. It really is the relationship. He had no idea who I was. I was a first-time investor, and the only way that I was able to gain his trust is setting up the meetings with him. And I had everything prepared. I had presentations ready to go. I ran my comps, and I made it to their house. Mm-hmm. And it was more of a friendly meeting. He just wanted to get to know who I was, but I also wanted to be prepared. And that just shows how much you want this deal or how serious you're taking this deal. I think that's important for PMLs or for people who are seeking PMLs, is you have to be professional about the whole thing. You develop that relationship, but you also have to have the numbers with you too. So they can run it, they can cross-verify it. And he knew at that point that he knew how hot the market was on Maui in Lahaina, and it made sense for him. And that's why he jumped on the deal. Interestingly enough, prior to the PML, I went the hard money lending route. They wanted the deal. They really did. But there were closing costs, there were upfront costs that were involved with it that they still knew it was a good deal. And when I went back and I said, hey, I'm actually going to go a different route with a private money lender, that didn't go very well with them, because they knew that this deal was good and they wanted it. So what do we need to do in order to keep you or to keep us to fund that deal? I ran my numbers and I told them exactly what I needed, and it didn't work out for them. It wasn't going to work out for the hard money side. So I'll still use them for future deals if I need to. Yep. But prior to this, again, private money lending and hard money lending, all stuff that I never knew prior to this journey. But you have those options. As an investor, you've got hard money. You also have private money. On the private money side, you have to be more personable and develop that relationship with them. But there's so many options with funding if you want to, increase your volume of real estate.
I'll say this, that I've heard this a lot more recently. How you do one thing is how you do everything, right? So your ability to be as professional as possible, right? Show up to his house, give him all the information before they even have to ask for it, right? Try to overwhelm him with answers so that you're answering questions they haven't even asked yet. That is most likely what solidified your relationship with him, right? Because how else would he know that you're capable of doing this on a large scale if everything that leading up to that portion isn't commensurate with it, right? If you're coming in with numbers that are half-assed, if your presentation is horrible, if you're not treating him like $1 million, how is he going to trust you with your money, with his money, right? It is that, but on top of that, I heard something from Gary Vee recently that as entrepreneurs, we're salespeople first. So you need to be able to communicate what value you have to somebody else and transfer that in order for them to trust you. So, you obviously had these things. Were they self-taught already? Do you have sales background? Do you have any type of networking relationship management?
I never thought myself to be good in sales or marketing. I just liked it in high school. But I think what has really, where I got my training, I would say is at my W-2 job. I am an engineering manager at a resort. So I manage a group of 26 men. I've got 2 coordinators, and basically it's the maintenance of the property. The mechanicals to the villas, it's all stuff that I've never known about prior to, but I've been in this business now for, I want to say, since 2009. So I've been in the engineering realm to learn, how to manage people. Presentations was a huge one. So every single month we do this thing called an IBU, so individual business unit. You present basically what your department is doing in terms of finances, the projects that you're doing, training, how the associate engagement is. This is a presentation you're doing every single month. And I still remember the day when I had to do it for the first time. I nearly threw up. I was so lightheaded. I had to go to the bathroom.
The anxiety, the nervousness of it?
Yeah, I hated it. And I kept, every single month, probably a week before, I'm already anxious. I was like, oh my God, it's coming up all over again. But the prep work in that was spending a lot of time making sure that my presentations were clean, rehearsing every presentation. I recorded it so I could go back and say, oh, I was talking too fast. That didn't make any sense. That was very repetitive. I'm able to go back and really see how well or how bad my presentations were. And I had 2 mentors that were great at it. They were my idols because they could stand up there all day long. They will sell you anything and you wouldn't even know that they're full of shit, right?
Yeah.
But everything that they said was believable. And so I think that having that training of being in public and speaking has really refined my skills that I'm able to take into the real estate realm. Even when I am with PMLs, my presentations have to be clean. They have to be perfect. You don't have a period at the end of your sentence. That's not acceptable, right? Every T is crossed, every I has a dot. And that's where I think that stems from just years of being uncomfortable, standing in front of the crowd, managing a group of men, making sure that they're set up for the day. So it's made there's a lot of those skills that I can transfer to project management with the real estate.
It's basically already in your job description in your full-time job.
Yeah, and so I'm maximizing my W-2 as much as I can with the skills that they're giving me. And again, the goal is to not have a W-2 job, but it's so important to still utilize that and maximize it as much as you can. You still need it for a conventional loan. You still need it for all kinds of things with income. You're not going to be able to get approved for anything unless you have a steady cash flow or a W-2 job. And that's how I've been able to finance the 2 homes that I had. That's how it started. And it's just added benefits with the skills I've been able to take from it.
Nice. Well, I'm glad that we were able to highlight that portion because I like for people to, our viewers to understand that what it takes to be an entrepreneur, what it takes to be in business for yourself. Not all of the skills that some of us may have now were realized as an asset that we would use in the industry that we're involved in. So you really got to dive deep into yourself and be honest about what skills do I have? How can I correlate that to running a business? Do I even want to have my own business? Do I want that responsibility? There's a glorification of some of this stuff that's not necessarily the type of baggage that I want to carry around with me every day. Some people are meant to lead, others are meant to follow, and that's okay because it's a matter of quality of life too, right? Yeah. And that's the big thing that I like to try to repetitively remind people about, that it's not all fun and games, it's not all social media and success. It's trials and tribulations and challenges. Otherwise, how do you grow? How do you level up, right?
Yeah.
So I just joined WNN.
Hey, congrats.
And I love the group. I like the mentorship. A lot of people ask me, but oh, you're in real estate, you should know already. I said, well, yes and no. I understand real estate. I understand people. I understand sales. I understand finance. I don't have tons of repetition on buying property, right? For investing, especially out of state. And I like the concept of that. I like the concept of buying and getting these small wins and accumulating, right? So you've bought 4 properties?
Yes.
Since all this happened, right? That the idea of I bought 4 properties, that's freaking amazing, right? That's more properties than most people here have bought, whether it's your primary residence or whether it's an investment. Just going through the motions and learning, you get more comfortable with it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And I've followed you and you're more prominent on social media now too. You're doing a lot more.
Trying, yes.
Yeah. What's the plan? Like, what's the next 5 years in a nutshell look like for you?
That's a good question. Well, my W-2 job, I want to replace that, obviously, with more passive income. I want to add more to my portfolio in Kansas City and expanding outside of Kansas City, I guess. I'm comfortable there because now I'm starting to develop a team. I have my realtor that I really like. Mariana's awesome. And then the contractors that I work with also, I just found a project manager, and he's great. We did a kickoff meeting this morning, and I didn't expect that. This was the first. We're going through the logistics and the cost of what this property project rehab is going to go through. So that was really nice. They had asked, one of the questions they asked is, how much involvement do you want in the designing phase of this property? I could be hands off. I could be as easy as just say, just pick whatever. I don't care. Because I know that they're going to do it right anyway. They're project managers, but I'm that type of person that wants to know. I need to know.
Well, you are a project manager, basically.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
learning how to relinquish that control without having built up a whole bunch of trust, right? Without historical engagement together.
Well, and this is the first time I'm working with this project manager too. So more so for me, I need to be comfortable with that. So I told them as far as just let me know, just drop me a text. I want to see what's going in. I want to be a part of that process, at least until I can be comfortable and say, yep, Nick, do whatever you want. I trust you wholeheartally.
Yeah.
Go ahead, do the rehab, get it rented, and just give me my passive income.
And so that's through the process you'll gain trust.
Yeah. And that's part of building a team. The first contractor that I had was a referral from my realtor, and he's good. He doesn't speak very much English, but the quality of his work is there. It's a little bit harder to communicate. Now with this project manager, everything just seems to be, more cohesive, I guess.
Together.
You only have one person that you're communicating to, and they have this formal discussion of here's what's going to happen, here's what we need from you, and this is what hurdles we're coming across. So to be informed of that, that's more of my style. I need to know, and if they don't respond to me, I'm going to freak out. Like, hey, I'm going to keep texting you. I don't care what time it is. Yeah. I'm going to find out what is happening. I need to know.
You better just answer me the first time.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's been exciting. I think the journey has been really exciting. I think naturally what a lot of these investors are doing is they're going from single family and then they go to multifamily, right? I'm not there yet, and in WNN that's a big thing, because the more doors you have, the less of the vacancy you'll have if you have a multifamily and so forth. I haven't explored that yet, but I want to just keep growing my single family portfolio. This year my goal was to get 10. I wanted to go into the Las Vegas market too. That one's a whole lot harder because the numbers don't make as much sense in the cash flowing unless you're flipping. But I know people in that market that are flipping and are being successful in it. So I'm considering that, and I think this year's strategy is to just keep adding to the single family, build up enough passive income to replace my W-2, and then after that start looking into, somebody had mentioned it the other day too, Brandon did, but storages. So he had brought that up. I'm like, that might be a good one. Especially harder here on Maui, but there's a need for it. There really is a need.
Well, it's hard to make the numbers line up, right? There's a need for it, but to be able to do it in a way that I can provide and everything is covered and the numbers work out, that's the hard part, right? Because there's a disconnect between the property value and the need and what people are willing to pay for the end product of that.
Yeah, correct. Single family for me this year, just building that up. And in 5 years, what I really want to do is have systems in place and processes where I'm more hands off. I want to be a passive investor to a private money lender and help people here on Maui. I think there's so many people making educational programs,
Courses, yeah.
courses,
Mentorships.
and
yeah.
mentorships, where there's a part of me that disagrees with getting too big and you lose that personal touch with people.
Yep.
And I don't like that. If I do a mentorship, I want to do one-on-ones, and that way you're really adding value to people here, especially if it's their friends of yours, family of yours here on Maui. It's hard to do that when you have so many students, but you got to have systems in place for it too, and I don't have that yet. So,
And I think you just spoke on every CEO's challenge, right? In order to scale, you still need to stay at the top of the pile, right? You still have to be the on top of the hierarchy of everything. So that means that in order for you to duplicate yourself, you got to hire somebody under you. That person now, like your project manager,
yeah.
right? Now you have a project manager that deals with the contractors, that deals with all these other things. You took your connection away from that situation.
Yes.
Same thing like mentorships and classes, right? The student to teacher ratio is different. But if you want to do that, there's a difference between becoming an educator and having a successful school or like mentorship program versus being a successful mentor,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So if that's what you want, you already have the skills to do it, and you just focus on the individuals rather than focusing on creating a successful school or program.
Correct. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, and charging top dollar for it.
Yeah.
But that's the progression. That's the progression. So, I like that you still want to be here to be able to add value in this demographic of society that you came up through. You know.
Yeah, it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be an interesting one too. Especially, it's so crucial even right now because of what's happening in Lahaina for people there to start looking at how else they can get into real estate, because the situation is not gonna get any better there in Lahaina. $500,000 gets you a 1920s plantation house. What do you think is gonna happen when every single house is rebuilt brand new in Lahaina? There's no way you're going to get a house there for $500,000, or maybe not even $1 million. And I think that worries me even more now, because people in Lahaina are going to be considerably even more outpriced now. It's going to be top dollars in Lahaina, and if you're not doing everything right now to set up for that, you're going to be left behind. I'm fortunate that I think I'm not gonna let any of my properties go. So I'm fortunate to have 3 there in Lahaina that I'm gonna keep forever, and rebuild it. Not too many people have that luxury. So many people were renters there.
I challenge that luxury word because it wasn't
True.
luxurious. You paid your dues to acquire those.
Yes.
So we're not in the luxury phase in life yet. you hustled for that. You worked for that. You deserved it. You earned it. So I don't think if anybody looks at that and says like, "Oh, you're lucky," no, that's not luck. That was hard work.
Thank you. Yeah, agree. Yeah, I think that people just need to get themselves lined up, because no matter what, houses in Maui are not going to get any more cheaper. It's going to continue to.
Nothing in Hawaii is going to get
Nothing
cheaper.
in Hawaii. No.
No. We are surrounded by water. We have to import most of our valuable goods. We're no longer an export. I'm doing kung fu over here with this fly. I'm really good. We are an international destination. People don't realize that we are the only state in the U.S. that has all 5 major bases in a 50-mile radius, because we're a strategic location
Middle of the Pacific
in
Ocean.
the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Yeah. So if it wasn't the U.S., it would have been some other country that took us over. I'm sure that's going to be a little controversial. But that's life, you know.
Yeah.
I think that if the fire itself and the predicament that people were in, having not been prepared for an emergency fund or anything like that, if that's not a wake-up call for the people anywhere, not just the people that were directly affected by the fire, but I don't know what else would spur them to make a change, you know? So I think as investors that participate in social media and sharing our experiences, strength and hope, that we help who wants to be helped,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And I can't wait to see what else you get done, because you're just out there hustling, and you're somewhat removed because most of the REI community is on Oahu, and there's a lot of focus on the Big Island right now.
Yes.
Right, because of the
I see
ground up
that.
construction.
Yep.
It's the last frontier for Hawaii, but you're still over here doing it, and it's not like you're surrounded by everybody. A lot of people in Oahu, that's a luxury. People in Oahu have the luxury of going to the meetups with hundreds of attendees. You're
Yeah.
self-inspiring here, and there's not a big community here.
You know, that's true. I still feel like I'm part of the Oahu community.
yeah.
I'll fly over there any day.
But you're intentional. You make the effort
Yes.
to come, right? So that's
I'm
good.
not going to lose out on any of those opportunities. And again, those networking events are so invaluable. There's nothing else like it. You know, you get to reconnect with people that you only see on social media, and it's all you going there. It's like, you know them. They're already part of the family. You know,
Yeah.
Come Hawaiian Tristan, that event was huge.
Yeah.
And it was such a pleasure to be a part of it, because one thing I've learned through this entire journey is no shame. Just go on right up there. Hey, I got a question for you. What do you think about this? What value can you add to the real estate community? And
Yep.
I've never been one to even like social media either, but you know, through WNN, it was one of those things that I had to do if I was going to be successful in real estate and to expand my horizons and meet new people and connect with people like you. So no shame. If you go to these network events,
I know. I
introduce
saw that
yourself.
interview. I was proud of you. Like, oh, girl, she's got her mic and she's sticking it in somebody's face. Yes, get it.
I got more coming. But
There you go.
yeah,
There you go.
I think I'm going to be like a newscaster at some point. But I enjoy it. I think it really brings you close to other people, and it brings awareness, and you're just expanding your network at that point. So
Yeah.
I enjoy it.
Well, I appreciate you coming and sharing this conversation and talking about all the things. And I always enjoy the things that we get to do together. And I appreciate you allowing me to be a part of, you know, all these things. I'm very grateful. It's grateful that I get the opportunity to be of service and to help and be a part of the community that I otherwise would have not been able to.
You've been a great support, and the next time you're around, I'll keep you involved in the rebuild too. So we'll document that whole journey, and it's always a pleasure when you're
couldn't
around.
get rid of me if you wanted to now. You just fed the neighborhood cat, you know what I mean?
I'm willing to feed that cat.
Well, I appreciate you.
Thank you.
I'm excited. This is fun. Finally to be able
good.
to do something together and to be able to share. And we do, I've got a couple of videos that I put together and kind of highlights. We've got the meetup. I took the first meetup that we went. I took it on my iPhone, so it's the production quality is not there, but I captured it. And then I've got on day 5, I came out, met with Joice and Daryl, and we were able to go into Lahaina, and Joice and you two took us through from getting past the National Guard and HPD or MPD, and then making it all the way to Napili Park. Along the way, we stopped and we met so many different hubs of people, like just dropping off things that we brought to give away and to try to help. And I mean, once in a lifetime experience.
I just want to highlight that too, right? Because everybody in the real estate community did their part and they helped Lahaina. You're one of those that got with your group. You guys put together a whole bunch of pallets, and in that day, I don't think anybody can thank you enough for it. But yeah, going through all those checkpoints and whatnot. But we drove through every single hub asking people, hey, what do you need? Do you guys?
Yeah.
People came in with luggages of stuff that we gave away. So that really was a great community effort too. You got to be a part of that, and we got to see it, and we were able to help Lahaina with just even just even in the little things. It all makes a difference.
Yeah, and that spurred, big mahalo to Guava Tree. A lot of everything that happened, we managed to Guava Tree's been the hub for myself through a lot of that, and the connections, and still to this day, like, I got a new family. I don't know how else to put it, but I got a new family, and I can come to Maui anytime now. And I do have blood relatives here, but they're not the first ones I call. They will be. I'm reconnecting with them, but like Joice is one of the first people I call, and because I look forward to seeing you guys.
Same here.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Thank you.